One of the great strategies for success is to act as if you already are where you want to be. This means thinking like, talking like, dressing like, acting like, and feeling like a person who has already achieved your goal. Acting as if sends powerful commands to your subconscious mind to find creative ways to achieve your goals. It programs the reticular activating system in your brain to start noticing anything that will help you succeed. And it sends strong messages to the universe that this end goal is something you really want. Jack Canfield. Welcome to the Lost Traveler Podcast. I'm your ever-loving host, Henry Cameron Allen. And today I have a very, very special guest, a new friend, Andrea Lukac from Vienna, Austria. She's an NLP trainer, a hypnosis coach, and a psychological counselor. And I'm really excited to have you here today, Andrea. I saw your profile and I was really impressed at the work that you do. And I'm excited to get into a deep dialogue with you about all kinds of things. But anyway, welcome to the Lost Traveler.
Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Happy to have you. Tell me a little bit about your work. Tell me what you do and where in your biography you were inspired to do this.
Yes, so I'm a psychological counselor, and on the way, I became an NLP trainer and a hypnosis coach. I help people to come from where they are to where they want to go. And oftentimes, there are emotions like fear, guilt, shame, which prevent them of living in their full power. So I'm assisting them with a lot of tools and help them to go very quick into their power, be happy and satisfied, and owning their lives. And where did this all came from? So oftentimes people don't do anything or change something in their lives until the pain doesn't become strong enough. And so it was with me the same. I was working in economics and in export especially, and we had a leader who didn't own his position, and it were quite hard, draining times for all of us. And I searched my way out and wanted to understand how I can be in a position so that I'm not influenced by this drained, confusing energy around me, which got me in the coaching industry. And um, I saw a lot of changes, so I wanted to learn it and help others out of this.
That's wonderful. And you were born in Vienna, yeah?
Yes, I'm born in Vienna.
That was my foundation when I left America. My father was an American diplomat. He worked for the US government. And our first post was in Grinzing, just very close to the center of Vienna. And I have very fond memories of it. When you were growing up in Vienna, were you a sensitive child? I mean, how did it progress into this desire to help guide people on their path?
So I was a very sensitive child, and I was picking up a lot of information and data which others didn't, which is good on one hand, but it can make you overwhelmed if you're not understanding what's going on.
Right.
And so that was also a great learning lesson for me. Um, Having this ability on one side and on the other side to be able to deal with it.
Is this a physical disability?
No, being sensitive to the world. So you're picking
Oh,
up a lot
yes.
of information. You are not aware of it. So it's
Yeah.
running subconsciously. And
Right. So it's almost a psychic disability. It puts you at a disadvantage sometimes. I was also a very sensitive child. I was the middle child. So I had an older sister who was the princess, everybody's girl, and very much attention was given to her being the firstborn. And then I have a younger brother who was kind of the little prince, and he was always going to be the baby, right? So I have classic middle child syndrome. And I don't know about you if you have siblings, but I know for me, I often felt I was either ignored completely or people used me as their scapegoat, right? Because my sister and brother were untouchable. I was the one who got the brunt of their anger or their frustration or sometimes rage. And I much preferred being ignored, frankly. But it allowed me a lot of alone time to be able to observe, to become an observer and assess human behavior around me and wonder, why is that person acting that way? What happened to them? Are you relating to this? Is this kind
Yes,
of, we were
yes.
so we would have been really good friends as kids, I think.
That's phenomenal what you are bringing right now.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we don't even talk about it very often, what it means to be a child like that. And one of the reasons that I started this podcast to address these life skills that every one of us on the planet learns, right? But who is tasked with teaching us these essential, universal life skills? We don't learn them in schools. Teachers are not trained to teach life skills. We don't learn them at home. Most parents or people, I would say, in the parenting generation, right? And that would mean you and me and anyone who is of the age where they could be a parent. They may or may not be actually a parent, right? But they may not have those skills. These are the people, the adults that children will look up to as a model for how to be in the world. And most of us are very deficient in these essential skills because who did we learn these life skills from? We learned them from our parents and their parents and their parents. There's a cycle of deficiency that is perpetuated from one generation to the next, right? So when that inheritance came to me as a child, a turning point for me, and I think it was probably around the age of 13 or 14, was the recognition, because I had been an observer all throughout my childhood, was the recognition that if my parents knew better, they would do better,
Yeah.
and that they weren't always honest and they weren't always making the right choices. And so these people that I had invested all of my trust in to care for me and provide for me and to guide me and to teach me, they were human after all. Where was the turning point for you in that recognition of, okay, I can understand now where that came from in your experience?
Mhm. So I was as a child also very good in observing my environment,
Yeah.
and what I found out that adults, which I observed, were not aware or not observing, and that was the part which confused me at a certain point because I was not understanding how I, as a child, I'm able to observe, and they are not doing that. But it just states that there was a blind adult which was not observing but putting its own ideas upon others.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think back, I was quite often in the position to observe that a lot of people are like going their day-to-day lives not awaken, like with closed eyes, they just go their way. So very little awareness and mindfulness, and that's a point where I also want to bring consciousness and awareness to be an observer, to not only observe the environment around us, which is influencing and impacting us on a certain level, but also to be an observer on myself, on oneself, to see how I'm thinking in a certain situation, how am I feeling, how am I acting, behaving, because these are great indicators which show a lot of us.
Shadow and Light LLC was established by Dave Roberts and Reverend Patty Farino, co-authors of When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister. Their mission is to empower individuals to transcend life challenges by integrating spiritual practices with psychology to achieve peace. They are available for individualized spiritual counseling, virtual or in-person presentations and workshops to universities, organizations, and other interested groups, virtual or in-person book club meetings. For further information, go to psychologyprofessorandminister.com. Yeah, and that requires the skill of detachment, doesn't it? A degree of healthy detachment. It's like that part of yourself that is, we always talk about the inner child, that every adult, we all have our inner child that is still frightened and curious and cold and scared and all of that, confused. And we get to parent ourselves now, right? We don't have our parents standing behind us instructing us. So we have to engage our inner adult as a child. When we're children, I think, and nobody's talking about this, I may have to write a book about it, but I think I'm onto something, that all children also have an inner adult the way that an adult has an inner child, right? Sometimes for children, and I've been a long time educator. I was in Steiner schools as well in America as a teacher and administrator. So I've been immersed in education for many years. And I think that, there are different levels of a child's development when they are in their early, so I would say pre-7 years old, it's all about imitation. They are imitating the world around them so that they understand the world around them. And so it's the role of the parent, who is the child's first teacher, and the teacher in school when they first start preschool or kindergarten, that we consciously model behavior, the way that we speak, the words that we choose, the way that we treat one another. And this is the foundation year for the child. Then when you move out of the imitation phase, you move into the imagination phase, where the child starts to sort of identify themselves as a unique individual that can affect their environment, right? And that is really, don't you think, the state of our humanness is that we live mostly in our imagination, right? The past, whether it's our childhood or whether it's our adolescent years or early adulthood, that's gone. We can't go back and fix or change anything. There's no time machine yet that allows us to do that. And likewise, there's no time machine to project us into the future either, is there? Right? All we have is this moment and the capacities that we have. And in terms of life skills, there's never an age of life where it's not appropriate to improve your proficiency. But only you get to determine where you feel deficient. And it's what you're talking about exactly, that detachment to be able to observe yourself somewhere from above in the corner of the room, to watch yourself and to say, you know what, I could do this better. And you really only know that in the moment. One of the things that you had mentioned in your profile was your focus on guiding people to understand that your past must not determine your future. And I love that. Talk a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yes, you touched on a great topic because I want to ask the listeners, how often are they present and how often are they with their thoughts in their past or in their future? And if we have a great look, a lot of people are either in the past or either in the future, and very little are really present in the moment. And that's the point where change and life is happening. So we are now feeling feelings which may occurred in the childhood, and we think that they are equivalent in that situation, but they aren't. So to understand that maybe some desires and needs were heard in the past, and our subconscious mind refers to it with our thinking process, we connect to them, and then we feel depressed or drained or overwhelmed. And our mind naturally has a protection function, so it projects into the future based upon past experiences and looks for things which could go wrong, just to protect us and to understand. That's done when the feelings of anxiety or fear come up, because
Right.
we are still in a future concept and not in the moment right now. And whatever we have lived or experienced in our past is influencing us to a certain degree. But until we recognize and become aware of it, we can change it. And that's where the power is. So if we will be unconscious and will have not a look on it, it will influence us on a subconscious level until we will become aware of it and we change it, and then we can take another life course. And therefore the past must not determine your future. And there may be experiences you liked or didn't like in your past, but they are not determining your future if you don't allow it. And therefore, I'm also speaking for clarity, to become clear of what is in a situation and of awareness, because when we are aware of what is, we can change it. And how often does it happen that someone is telling us something, and we say, oh yeah, I know that. So we are stopping the other person because we think we know what they wanted to say. But what is really happening is we refer to our past,
That's
search for
right.
reference experiences, say we know that. And there is also a lot of miscommunication happening because we
Yeah,
were not listening
that's right.
and didn't pay attention to the words which were said and what really was here. And then we humans start to label and to interpret things, and then that's that, and we think we know it, although the perception is very limited at that point then.
It is limited, and we can only see from our own individual perspective, which is informed by everything that came before. We are the sum of all of our experiences, right? And I see it as almost like the human being as a sort of lighthouse. Imagine a lighthouse sitting on a rock out in the sea, and the beam of the light emanates and it goes around 360 degrees, right? But that beam of light will only shine so far before you get into the realm of the unknown, where it cannot illuminate, where it cannot see. And that's where the imagination lives. We can only see in this moment where we are, and we can only see our surrounding. I'm looking around my salon and I can only see to the wall. I cannot see beyond the wall, right? So I call this fifth dimensional thinking, right? When you think of the first dimension is just pure, just absolutely flat, nothing, right? It's a flat surface. Two-dimensional is that it has height to it. Three-dimensional has width and height to it. And you can see something in the third dimension, like a cube or a cup or whatever, right? Fourth dimension is then when you move through time and space between your point A and the point B of that three-dimensional object. And you can even calculate how long it will take you to get from point A to point B, right? So that's fourth dimension, is conceiving the time that it would take to get from point A to point B, engaging your body, moving through air, moving through time and space to get to that point. Fifth dimension is you don't know what's on the other side of that door. It could be anything. It could be a puppy. It could be a portal into a wormhole into another part of the cosmos. It could be a birthday cake. It could be anything, a car, a brand new car. It could be anything, right? And so only by opening that door and crossing the threshold into that fifth dimensional space, the realm of the imagination, that is a deliberate act that every single person has the power to do. But you must engage. I love that you talked about fear. You must engage your courage to open the door in spite of what might be on the other side, because you do not know. It's only in your imagination. Just like where you've just been in the past is only in your imagination. If you shared an experience with someone, say you remember a fight that you had with your mom or your sibling or whatever, right? You're remembering it from your perspective, but they have a completely different memory of that same shared experience, right? And you cannot be responsible for what they remember, only for what you remember and what you did with that data. What you do with that information is your responsibility alone. A guy wire is a tensioned cable that is designed to enhance the stability of a freestanding structure. Think of me as your guy wire. In terms of life skills mentoring, you're perfectly capable of standing stably on your own 2 feet. But I'm a cable that can enhance your stability. I'm available for individual or couples counseling, life skills mentorship, child loss grief support, LGBTQ plus support. I can also officiate weddings, end-of-life ceremonies, baby namings, invocations, or whatever guidance you may need. I serve all genders, all ages. Sessions are affordable, discreet, private, and conducted online. Find me at guy-wire.org. Book your appointment today. Your generous sponsorship and individual support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a charitable project under the fiscal sponsorship of United Charitable, a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The Lost Travelers Club focuses primarily on the needs of parents who have outlived their beloved children. We recently launched our new Brain Candy Project wing, providing art supplies to children still struggling with critical or terminal health-related conditions. We hope to raise enough funds to launch Brain Candy, an arts and literature magazine created by and for these young people. Find out more at www.braincandy.online. Thank you. So I have a question for you. From a practical standpoint, and I know there's a lot of fear in the world right now. There's a lot of reason to be fearful. How does one break through? How does one awaken from the spell that they're under if they're walking around like a zombie, not having any proficiency in the skills required to wake up and detach and evaluate and study your own biography? How does somebody start? What is the first step on that road?
So to acknowledge when this feeling of fear arises within us. So it's like it comes and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So to stop and to go back by observation and find out the point where it starts, and than to have a sincere look on what really is. So making such a, like I call it, a little reality check to see what can I hear, what can I see? Is there a reason why I should feel fear for, or is it just an imagined fear which I feel within myself? But when we are feeling it, it's really very realistic for us. So and then to sit down and have a view on all of these experiences where we felt safety, and to figure out the difference between when we felt safety and when we feel fearful. So what is the difference, which makes the difference in here? Paying a closer look on that, and then seeing which step or movement or whatever can I take next to come into that safe space back again. So how was I feeling then? What was I feeling? So maybe there is some sensation in our body to find it. It will be different for everyone, because like you said, we perceive the world from different perspectives, or for our own perspective. So we have to see how I was perceiving it and then just matching this up when we feel fearful.
Yeah, well, and it's again, there are a lot of reasons to be fearful in the world right now. I was interesting a story. I was probably about 8 years old, and I was in Vienna. I was attending the international school in Vienna, my alma mater, and my teacher gave us a homework assignment to write a short paragraph. I mean, we were only 8 years old, so we were still learning how to write, basically. And so the exercise was to write a paragraph on your greatest fear. That was the subject of the paragraph. And I was sitting at my desk. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting at my desk, and the first question that came to me was, why would an adult ask a child to focus on their fear? When children don't want to think about things they're scared of, they want to run away from them, right? And I was never a fearful child either. I was never afraid of the dark. I was never afraid of bugs or snakes. There was no monster under my bed. And so I really had to sit and think about, what do I fear? What do I fear? Because I had to do the assignment. And the only thing that I could think of was outliving my children. And even at 8 years old, I think when a child is given an opportunity to sit with their imagination and create the space to reflect, the time of reflection, I think is important for children. It's important for all of us. It's important for our inner children. And what's interesting is that I believe that it was a premonition. I had one child, my son Cameron, who sadly passed away from brain cancer when he was 13 years old. He was my only child. I was a single father. So it was really kind of an existential shift for me. And as I was processing that whole experience and working through my mourning, working through my grief, working through my anger, my guilt, all the things that come with loss, I had a dream. And what came out of that dream was the realization that if there is a gift to be found in such a loss, it is that my fear was resolved. I had survived and lived through my greatest fear since childhood. I had faced it and I had conquered it. So now, in my 50s, in my midlife, I get to live the rest of my life fearlessly and in a very fearsome world, surrounded by a lot of fearful people. And I think simply the act of being fearless, choosing that path and finding the tools along the way, uh, just by being authentic in that journey, anyone who is a witness to it, they can't replicate what I have found or what I've done because my biography is unique to me, right? But they can find those things. My grandmother used to say, eat the fish and spit out the bones, right? You take what works for you, you find inspiration around you. And this is why I'm bringing experts and guests into this conversation, because anyone who's listening in these 34 countries around the world gets to listen to the tools that we have collected and try them out. They can't use them the way we do because they're not us. But what they can do is synthesize them with the tools that they already have and create unique tools for them in their journey. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it's so wonderful what you're saying because energy flows where our concentration goes, and therefore
Love
we
that.
should be very careful on which questions we are asking or what we are visualizing with all of our senses because we are experiencing it then. And therefore, I treat on the one side, it is important to know yourself, but also your social networks. Who is supporting me? And who are the naysayers, the ones who are stopping me from going my way? And oftentimes we don't realize it and get confused, but to sit down and have an inventory on our social networks and with whom we are surrounded. Where are the people who can support me when I'm in a down phase? So to bring me up. Where are these who will drain me? So I know I don't need to contact them if I'm in a down phase,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
But being clear on ourselves and on our surroundings will help us in such phases because we know immediately whom we can contact and who will be supportive and whom we rather not contact at that moment in time.
And there are going to be people around us who we can't get away from, whether it's at our workspace or our family, who may not necessarily be focused on our highest good in their dealings with us. But I think that, you know, that can allow someone to feel stuck and not know how to get out of that situation or feel empowered to affect change in their social circles, right? So what I try to do, and I want you to talk about this too, is figure out who's a teacher, who you know, every challenge brings with it an opportunity. Every challenge brings opportunity. And when we're challenged by another person, that's an opportunity to find a new way. If I want to learn how to cook Chinese food, I'm going to find an expert in Chinese cooking to teach me. If I want to learn a musical instrument, or if I want to learn a sport, right? Or if I want to take parenting classes, I go and find an expert in that skill so that I can improve my proficiency in the skill that I want to learn or better. But we don't do this with life skills. The sole
Yes.
responsibility is given to parents to teach these essential foundational life skills. And most parents are not equipped, right? So we have to go and find them. I've interviewed a lot of young people and I say, where did you learn your life skills? The list, you know, from financial literacy, communication skills, sexual literacy, hygiene, grief, you know, all of these things that we're talking about. Where did you learn your skills? And 98.9% of them do not say, I learned them from my parents. They say, I learned them from observing the world around me. I learned them from YouTube videos, other places online, and I learned them from my friends. I don't learn them from my parents. My parents don't know what they're doing. Where did you learn your essential life skills proficiency?
Yes. So I believe also in observation, but also in transformation.
Mm,
So when something was triggering me, so I had a look on what is it within me, or what exactly is that person triggering, and what is it with me which goes into resonance with that, so
yes.
I can feel the anger or a negative emotion within me, so I want to release it. So, and by knowing where these persons are which are influencing me in a negative way, and I have realized it, so then I'm in a position I don't need to give my power to them.
For years, I've turned on the television and the internet and have felt bombarded with messages of support, begging for money to support children in Africa, Afghanistan, India, all over the world, war torn countries. Children are starving, not only for food, but for education and love in some cases. um, I recently connected with Desire childcare organization that transforms the lives of orphans and vulnerable Ugandan children in Kampala and Mukono by providing wholesome food, housing, healthcare, and creative arts education from early childhood to adulthood. Won't you join me in helping save orphans and vulnerable children? We can do it together, one organization at a time. I chose this one. Visit desirechildcare.org for more information. Thank you. And we
So
do. So many people do. They, on a silver platter, they give away their power. You know, my grandmother had another really good saying. She said, when you're pointing a finger at someone else, you've got three fingers pointing back at yourself. The question, and there are so many people looking for someone to blame. There's always got to be a villain for my troubles. It's always someone else's fault. But when you take those three fingers and point them back at yourself, and as you say, ask the question, what about that is triggering me? Because I can't change another person's behavior. I can only change my own. I can only change my approach, right? Where did you learn all this? How did you learn?
so the most lessons I learned in my education to become a psychological counselor, and I will go so far to say that we have to own our lives.
Yeah.
And if I'm owning my life, I'm not shaming and blaming other people around me.
Okay.
I'm learning to set healthy boundaries, to know where I want to go, have the courage to follow the task needed to be done to reach my goal. And it can be any goal. So if it
Yeah.
is a financial goal or a working goal, or there may be personal goals or goals with emotions, because a lot of people are not in the position to own them. So each goal we set um, takes clarity, consistency, courage, and having a look to be in our power. And when I hear then people say, yeah, I have to be here for others and overgive, because they need to people please. But
Yeah. Mm.
I'm asking then, if you lose your power on the way doing so, and you don't own your own power, how would you then be in a position to help others if you are drained or lack of energy?
So
So that's
true.
counterproductive.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely. You know, I've been mentoring an organization in Uganda, a young man who has essentially rescued and adopted 32 orphaned and vulnerable children from the slums, from the streets. And I don't know what that was. And I started a group because I was doing a lot on my own, and you know, there's often strength in numbers. And so I put out a social media invitation on Facebook, especially, to form a group of helpers, to link arms together, to not only support this foundation, the Desire Child Care Organization in Kampala, but also two others that I have involvement with, that I'm trying to raise awareness and funds for. And I had 25 people within 24 hours join this group. I was like, yes, I'm hitting a frequency that people want to be a helper in this world. They want to be effective, right? One of my biggest triggers, Andrea, is helplessness. I don't like feeling helpless. It puts me into a depressive state. It makes me not want to move forward or even get out of bed the next day. And I experienced 2 years of helplessness when my son was ill, right? So that is a trigger for me. And what I have found, a few people have now left the group because it was triggering something in them. They were seeing that some people in the group were able to donate money, which they could not. They were not in a position to donate money. Not that I asked anyone to donate money, right? This was all about spreading the word and raising awareness and being a group of helpers. It didn't require any financial investment at all. And a lot of people are struggling right now all over the world with their own income. And I was having a conversation this morning, actually, with a friend of mine in the UK who was feeling very guilty and feeling very depressed because she didn't feel that she was able to support in this group the way that she saw other people supporting. And we just raised $1,000 together from, I think it was maybe 16 donors around the world. Were able to raise $1,000 to prevent these children from being on the streets. It was an emergency fund. And so a couple of people backed out of the group because they were feeling triggered and depressed that they could not offer money. They could not affect the goal of rescuing these children. And they saw other people stepping up in a way that they didn't feel that they could. And so rather than engage with the group and saying, I'm struggling with this, how do I move through that? How do I rise above it? How do I find my way of helping? I can't help financially. I can't help with this, that, or the other thing, right? So rather than have the conversation of finding where they could help with their unique talents and time available to them, they completely retreated and sort of shrunk down into a raisin, like a grape that has all the moisture sucked out of it. And now they feel horrible. And I feel horrible that they feel horrible. I can't control that. But what would you say to somebody in that situation who wants to do good, wants to be a helper to others, but does not feel empowered within themselves or lacking in direction to know
Yeah.
quite how? What would you tell them?
Yes, we tend to interpret something, and here maybe sometimes we compare, and the question is to what am I comparing? And if my goal is here, so which resources are needed to reach my goal? And in this case, probably there are financial resources, there are could be mental resources, emotional resources to support. So which if one resource is not available, so which will be the next I could use or utilize? And not just quitting, but having a look on how can I help? What am I good at? So, but if I'm not aware of myself and I don't know where my strengths are or my
And that
weakness
inner
points
critic
are,
voice is so loud.
Yes, that it's preventing me from helping, although maybe I will have a lot of resource to share, and even if it's to keep the children in a good mental state, to make them feel better. So there will be a tremendous amount of ways on which just 5 minutes of time, if I could spend them, or let's 10 minutes, half hour, um, it's the time which I'm spending with
Right.
another person.
That's right. Well, and you're absolutely right. Anybody can make a video or write a note to encourage the children. Tomorrow is a new day. You're doing great. Keep your hope alive. The power of that kind of a message is as good as money, even to someone who is suffering. Don't you think? I mean, to encourage one another. We are here to hold each other and to support each other. And if more people were able to improve that skill set and realize that it's not, to burn those old tapes of you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not rich enough to make a difference. Burn those old tapes. I don't care if you yourself are living in the gutter in a slum. You always have an opportunity to be kind to another person. The gesture of the cupped hands, right? That we see maybe a beggar, is holding out their hands asking for food or money, right? That gesture is in one moment, it's a gesture of receiving, it's a gesture of giving, right? Because you could have something in those hands that you're giving to someone else. Just could be love or a kind word. And it's also holding. So it's a threefold gesture, a very simple gesture of the cupped hands. It's giving, it's receiving, and it's holding. And that's those images are a good meditation, I think, for people to reflect on. If you can boil it down to the essence of what can I do? Burn the tapes asking you what you cannot do. I'm only interested in what you can do, right? Do you have 5 minutes to write a note to these children or to somebody who's suffering to say, I'm aware of you, I see you, I care about you, and I believe in you, right? That's the giving, receiving, and holding. It's a simple thing, but sometimes it's the simplest tools that can be the most effective and could change a person's entire trajectory of their life. Balance, pain mitigation, range of motion, athletic performance, focus, memory, immune system support, and REM level of sleep. All this and more made possible affordably with no pharmaceuticals, no injections, or invasive treatments. Just socks, insoles, and patches made stronger with the tactile patterning of Vox Life products. Scientifically proven to work and guaranteed. Now in the USA, Canada, and the UK. Visit www.dianedinkmeyer.voxlife.com. That's Vox, VOXX, life. You'll be glad you did. As we wrap up, this has been such a great and rich conversation. I appreciate your time and your wisdom. It's so valuable. I ask all of my guests in the last few minutes of the episode to think about 3 practical tools that our listeners all over the world, universal tools, to offer up as something to try, something you've experienced personally that has worked for you, that it's tried and true for you, but 3 universal tools that people can walk away with and try and maybe synthesize into their own toolkit.
So first of all, to see maybe that not everything is in knowledge, but mostly in experience. How can I make more experiences, aware experiences in my life. Where can I laugh or find the positive to experience some positive emotions and give that away to another person.
Mm.
What would be also, I'm very often telling it, be yourself observer, know yourself, own your thoughts, find in every situation there is a positive. We just have to find it and see it, and to concentrate more upon that, on positive reference experiences. Oftentimes a person had 1,000 positive experiences, and then one bad happens and they stick on this one bad and forget about all these good times. And what's
That's
also a nice practice is in the morning I can review my day and plan it so I'm more effective, and I can stay in my power because I also planned the time for myself in here. And on the other side, on the evening, it's a perfect time to review the day. How was I thinking? How was I feeling? How could I do it next time better? And
mm.
so we can improve on a daily basis. And learning, I believe, um, is a lifetime process, and it has not so much to do with knowledge as it has to do with experiences, because the experiences will remember us to certain situations to which we can stick to, either positive or negative, and we can recall the more positive and remember the positive situations, so we are not drained and powerless because we see what we have already accomplished. It's not that we cannot do it, but oftentimes we forget what we already
Oh,
did,
that's
and
such a
we
good point. That's such a good point. I often hear people talking about, clients when they're trying to find a reason in the way that they've behaved, or a pattern that they've found in their lives. Well, that's how I was raised. And my question to them is, well, who is raising you now? You're a fully grown adult and capable of making choices, right? And I understand that people, I mean, I know people who have multiple children. There is no time to sit and reflect and meditate on and reflect on or plan. It's really a moment to moment existence. One thing that I do every morning, my son did this as well, I taught him, is when you are coming awake, when your eyes are not quite open, but you're aware that it's morning time and you're starting to come into consciousness, that's a magical time and very, very powerful. And I don't spend a lot of time in that state planning, but that is when I reflect on all the gifts that I'm grateful for that have crossed my paths. I reflect on the gratitude that I am a survivor, that I have survived 100% of all the bad stuff that life has thrown at me. And I'm conscious and I'm abled in one way or another. I'm physically disabled and I have CPTSD. So I have disabilities, but I call them diff abilities, DIFF, diff abilities, because we are all disabled in one way or another, and we are all abled differently. So I focus on my abilities. I focus on what I can do and what I'm grateful for. Count your blessings, right? Sometimes it takes me 20 minutes before I open my eyes. Sometimes it takes 2 hours because and I list everything I can think of before I open my eyes to meet a new day. I reflect on the gratitude for having come through the past to this moment to face a brand new day where everything is possible. And I do the same at night as I'm falling asleep. And I actually invite the ancestors in to my dreams, because we are the products, every single one of us, of a lot of love, of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who existed before us. Because they loved each other, we exist, right? So we are born out of love, and I express gratitude to the ancestors, all of them, back to the first person, and they carry wisdom. And very often you can tap into that wisdom that lives in you because it lived in them. Everything you love about yourself, every talent that you have, every gift that you have, you've inherited from someone who came before you, right? And isn't that something to celebrate and reflect on, the power of that? There's a country singer in America. Her name is Dolly Parton. Have you heard of Dolly Parton?
No.
She's also an actress. She's from, the South, and she's got a very thick Southern American accent. She's just a ball of light and love. And one quote, and we'll end on this quote, that really stuck with me. I think she said it in a film that she was in. She said, "If you see someone without a smile, give them yours."
Yes, so that's so great.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing this time. I want to keep talking. We could talk for hours about this stuff. Come back and be a guest. We'll have a part 2 sometime, but let's definitely stay in touch.
Yes, let's do that.
Thank you again.
Yes, you too.
You've been listening to Season 3 of the Lost Traveler Podcast with your host, Henry Cameron Allen. Visit me online at www.andrealukac.coaching. Thank you to all my guests, and thank you to my listeners all around the world. I couldn't do this without your support. Let's keep striving for a better world together.